across the country, from Marsabit, Garissa, Lodwar, Nyanza, all those places, name them, KC, and even here in Nairobi, how many players do you have churned out to serve in the national team, to serve in the top tier league, and also to prepare themselves for what is coming, or what their lives will be like out there when they will be away from the countries, playing for other teams overseas, let's say in America, in the US, in the UK, and all these players. That's why today I'm having guests here in studio. I have Abdullahi and Mara here, who are going to tell us what exactly it means to have enough infrastructure dotted across the country. Let me begin with you, Mara from Garissa. I'm Abdullahi, I'm sorry.
Thank you so much, Jeff Mogire. My name is Dr. Abdullahi Mahmoud Mohammed. I'm a candidate vying for the position of Member of Parliament in Garissa Constituency Township. Just to answer your question, thank you, that's a very important question. In Garissa, we have a lot of challenges when it comes to sporting activities. More so, for example, the football. The other ones are not even there, volleyball and table tennis and lawn tennis and what have you, swimming. The one we have some activities now going on is soccer or football. We have lack of proper facilities in Garissa. Since independence, we have a small field which belongs to a primary school, public primary school, and that field is not to the standard of a stadium. So we are lacking a stadium, number one. We are also lacking at, for example, in the wards I come from, there are 4 wards in Garissa Township constituency, and what we have is just fields. So we don't have stadiums, we don't have proper coaches in Garissa who are well trained to develop the talent that we are seeking in football. We don't have even the awareness that we can produce talents in football, and football can be a source of income. For example, lack of the children are not well groomed in terms of sporting activity. They just do it just as a form of recreation. So what we need to do more is to develop academies in Garissa so that we can talent.
Before we come to that place, Marwa, from your place, you have produced many players. You can just name them. There are very many. Yeah. And yet, still we are struggling to get more. Even with the top players that you've produced, even with the evidence that you can do more, still people are struggling in the grassroots. There are no facilities.
Yeah, my name is Jane Moronge Marwa from Migori County. What you've said is actually the reality on the ground. In Migori, especially our brothers, the Luos, these are people who really loves when it comes to football and these other soccer games. But unfortunately, we are also lacking the same facilities that my brother has just talked about. We do not have standardized stadium for them to do the practice. We also are lacking that, like for example, when we talk of the government of Migori County, it's like not enough resources are pumped into that. In fact, I would say it's a function that is not fully devolved as it is supposed to be, so as to reach those at the grassroots level. I have stayed in Nairobi for quite some time, where my children have been practicing basketball, rugby, but when you get to the rural, you realize that this is something that is not there. I started just a small group in Isibania where they are practicing basketball, but because it's not well funded, then you realize. But otherwise, this is a position that I'm now going in. And I want to believe that once I form that government, I'll make sure the ministry that will be in charge of sports will be well equipped with enough resources pumped there.
Abdullahi,
yes.
Every year the government sends money to the county government. The county government is supposed to help that money spent for sports activities trickle down to the sub-counties, that is constituencies. But every other, after 5 years, close to electioneering year, that's when we see politicians holding or having tournaments. That time they're putting on the caps of political parties where they're coming from. They're buying T-shirts for the young people. They're buying them balls and shoes and uniforms and all that. Why should we wait until the last minute and spend that money in hosting tournament when we can use this money and have an infrastructure of sports in our government, and we can have a system as well? What happens to this money?
That's a good question, Jeff. And especially that's where we come in as youthful leaders in our constituencies. For example, in my constituency, Garrisa Township, there is about allocation of 2.5% of the total allocation per year. We are talking about 2.5% of 147 million, roughly around 3 million per budget. And that money, we don't see it. What we see is a trickle down of buying jerseys and sporty kitty for the youth. They don't understand. These are young boys and girls who need to be shown the way. So that's where we come in as young, upcoming leaders to highlight those inefficiencies by the people that we want to change from our constituencies. That has been a trend, you're right, ongoing on, and that's impacting the production of talents from, especially from Garissa and all those underprivileged areas from Northeastern. So more so in the counties, there's an allocation also in the counties allocated for sports. There's a sports minister in my county, Garissa. So we need to work together between the county government and the constituency level, my constituents that I'm going to represent in this election period. We need to bridge that gap. The only people who can do is a youthful person like me, who is a sports person. I was a footballer when I was young. So I understand. When I go back to the counties now in Garissa and I play with the guys in sports, I can pick up the talent there. So we need to go back in the grassroots, find out why is the sports money and sports kitty mismanaged, and then fill in and close up those gaps that we have. Definitely we have gaps.
The president has come out openly, guns blazing, and saying when he gives young people opportunities, they steal. They are thieves in other ways. That's what he's saying, because he said he'd rather be comfortable giving Mudi Awori. At that time, he had appointed Mudi Awori for some position in the government, and then give young people who will disappoint him later, Mara. What do you make of that? Are you guys able to stand out and not steal from your own government so that the president can really believe in you and trust you to give you a position that you can run? Because young people, he says, they can as well mess up the resources.
These are some of the reasons that have really made us stand for these positions, because unfortunately, at least at my brother's place, is even talking of some allocation that is done. When you get to Migori, you'll be shocked. In fact, the few T-shirts that you usually see during those tournaments when you are nearing the election period are usually bought by politicians themselves. It's not money that is gotten from the county. So, I believe the percentage that is usually given, you can imagine 2.5% of almost 8 billion, how much money that is. This is money that is enough to actually come up with the academies that we are talking about, and even we'll be in a position to facilitate and have the players get the best coach who will be teaching them. We will be able to identify them right from the grassroots, but unfortunately it's not happening. So these are some of the things that, the vices that we are going to make sure that are stopped, such that the right budget gets to the right targeted people and they get the services that is required of them. And I think this would be stopped because in our government, we are going to make sure that we have that public participation, whereby even the people from that constituency, the 8 constituencies of Migori, will be able to know that actually there is that money that is set, because it's like the communities are not even aware of such budgets within the county. So we are going to make sure that the community gets to know that such an activity is supposed to happen. They also get to know that sports can be an employment like any other. Like when you are taking students to go learn to become teachers, you want them to be doctors, we can also have them come up as sports people and identify their talents and be able to use them even in future. So when we are talking of even creating employment, that is part of how these employments can be created.
Okay, so
at the
Abdullahi,
grassroots levels.
on your side, 2.5% of this 8 billion budget for counties is set up for sport. It's a lot of money, but again, county government, county top chiefs can complain and say, you know what, this money is not enough. We can do nothing with it. That's why they opt to use them in tournaments. Is this money enough to set up a system, a sports system that can help people within your constituencies, within your areas where you're leading people? Is it possible that we can have coaches trained? Is it possible that we can even have facilities renovated? Is it possible that we can have small academies funded by the county government to help channel talents?
Very important question, but let me just go back and just address the last question briefly.
Yeah.
And I will be very brief. We cannot condemn all the youth blankly on a blanket condemnation like that. What the president meant, in my understanding, was that there were some individuals who were youthful and probably they have stolen from the government. It doesn't mean Dr. Abdullahi from Garissa is planning to steal from government resources. We have a lot of and many youthful leaders who came through the system and they have done a wonderful job for the country. So one thing that we have in Africa, an asset, is our human capital, especially our youthful capital, which is we are well educated and we can take the mantle and we don't have to say the youth will steal. That aside, in terms of the resources, the allocations that are now provided in the budget year, it's not enough. For us, we are coming from a very disadvantaged point. For example, I told you, we don't have a standard stadium. Leave alone stadiums or stadia, we don't have a single one in Garissa, which is a standard. So when you don't have even the standard, for example, you're playing football on a rough place, you can't even control the ball well, you can't even do your skills, showcase your skills, and you're not able to get a feedback because you don't have a proper coach. So what I'm trying to request now under my leadership, I'll be seeking more allocation for Sports Kitty so that we catch up. Since independence, we have not been investing. And the money that was coming was mismanaged. So now what we want is more resources allocated for sports so that we can develop the talent. When we develop talents, those guys, when they go into professional playing football, it's even an asset for the country. They will remit taxes, they will send money back home in Kenya, and especially it will be good in our counties. So our young children will be preoccupied with the sports so that their minds might not be easily associated or corrupted by those bad elements, you know, the ones that are available in, they are readily there in Northeastern. So we can capture talent and keep them busy and then develop, nurture and the talents that we seek for. For example, there are sports which are unheard of in Northeastern, in Garissa especially.
Yeah.
I mentioned volleyball, tennis, both table tennis and long tennis, swimming. You know, we are not investing in those sports. Imagine you could have produced 2 or 3 people, even runners, you know, long distance runners, marathon runners. The only time we hear those kind of sports is during the national schools sports days. For example, the primary national sports day, the secondary school sports competition. Those are the only times. We need to start nurturing talents right from primary school all the way to the universities and set up the facilities. To do that, we need resources. For example, in Garissa, the population is growing. If you are giving 2.5% allocation, we are trying to ask for more so that we can catch up with the gaps that we have.
Majority of your leaders are hiding behind the marginalized community, where we say we are marginalized, we are not really taking care of the government properly like other communities, because they don't really feel being part of this government because the allocation is small. They say everything else they are disadvantaged. We can't talk about that because most of them are hiding behind that and they're doing nothing about it. So let's talk about areas like you come from the Nyanza region.
Yeah.
And you know the players that we have produced so far, and you can tell the caliber and the quality of talents that we've produced. What stops us from doing more? What stops Nyanza from doing more? What stops the region of Western region as a whole from doing more than waiting for high schools, identifying talents from high school, taking them to the league teams, and then from there, they go to the national teams, injuries, and they crash. A few get a chance to go outside and play professional.
We'll still just go back to the same that we had talked about. You know, to be able to bring, especially after these children are out of school, where do they go? They are left there. But once we come up with a structured form of a government, whereby you even establish a board that will be in charge of sports, this board will be able to identify, we had such and such a player from such and such a maybe a sub-county. How can this child, or now a grown-up, be brought on board? So it all goes back to not having the right structures on the ground, like having the fields that he's talking about, that they will be able to practice, having a coach that will actually be well paid to be able to perform to the expected standards, and even the players that are being churned from these the formal institutions, they also need some motivation. Provision of materials that they require for their practices and all this, of which it is usually not there. In fact, I would say that sports department has been really left not with a lot of, not a lot is put into it. It's like it is a ministry that is not taken seriously. So a lot needs to be put so that there can be a continuity. After school, this player that was in primary went to secondary is able to continue now using the facilities provided by the county.
So now this is a national problem, not even regional.
Somehow I would say it is national, but it is more serious in Migori County because I actually don't see it happen. It is just not there.
Can I add?
So,
Can I
go
on
ahead,
that? She raised a very important points towards your question. She's right. So now, in addition to that, what we are lacking is role models. Are these kids looking up to someone who had gone through the system that they can look up to? And then those ones who made it, are they coming back to the society to uplift other young children so that they can follow that path? Secondly, lack of awareness. Our children and our young ones are not aware that sports is a way, is a gateway. You can be dedicated to sports and make it in life. We are lacking that as a whole country. More so in our regions which are underdeveloped.
But we are seeing it from the Wanyamas, the Marigas. We are seeing it from other young people who are going abroad every other day.
Yes, you're right. So you see, you are able to see that in some areas. So what we would like to do is to involve more professionals to come back, even by virtue of TV or even use of the internet, to come and nurture some talents and give back to the society. More so, the most important thing that we are failing is the academies. If you set up the academies, we are able to pick up some of the kids who will be talented, and we can just see them through all the way to professional. Instead of, even the schooling will be in the academies. They will be in the academies just like the other countries do in Europe or America. They are being taught the curriculum as well as the sports activities, but they focus more on nurturing the talents of sports in those academies. So we are lacking that the whole nation, more so in the areas that we are talking about, Northeastern and the area, my friends.
In 2019, I was in Kisumu covering the school games, and there was a school from Garissa. They were under 16 and below. They were playing good football, beautiful. And I was like, they were winning. Actually, they won their category. And I was like, these guys are from Garissa, all the way from Garissa to Kisumu, to winning right here in Kisumu. A place where they never expected to win this, but they're winning in Kisumu. I was asking myself, what if these talents were given what it takes to be champions and to be tomorrow leaders? So coming back to that issue, now we have a team which is playing so well, done well in Kisumu. But majority of your leaders are hiding behind this marginalized community thing. And they say, you know what, we're not well funded. We are disadvantaged already. Is it possible you can just erase that narrative and get people to work?
Of course, with the right leadership, we are able to turn the ship around. We never lose hope. someone who understands the virtue and the importance and the significance of sports, like myself, I will be able to go back and develop. For example, you're talking about 2019. A few weeks ago, before Ramadan, or 1 month ago, I was playing with young people. And the talent I saw there, I shed tears. Because the guys are playing well. Ball control, all the departments of football, they have it. What they are lacking is development, both physically and developing their talents. You know, even you can be a footballer and you're not developed physically. You're not doing gym, you're not exercising well, you have not developed your stature as a player, then you will not be able to compete with people other places. So what these people are lacking is the proper nurturing and capturing of the talent and seeing them through all the way to being a professional. So who can do that is the question. The generations of leadership that we have had in Garissa for the last 15 years, especially my constituency level, they may have done some areas well, but now we need change. And we need young people who understand the importance of sports to be elected so that we can run these facilities and coordinate with the county level in addition to coordination with the national level to request more resources to set up what we need in the counties so that we can advance these guys through the channels. So in short, what we are lacking is proper leadership to lead in this direction, and we are able to provide that leadership, and that way we can erase that stigma and that we put our, the bandage we put on ourselves, that we are always claiming disadvantaged and marginalized, and we are just not accountable for the resources that we are given. For myself, the sports kitties will be managed by a board. I will be overseeing the board, and we will appoint people who will run the board, having a lot of transparency on how we deal with, so that we have the activities. We will also have a calendar, sports calendar, from the budget period all the way, the 5 years that I will be there, we'll have a sports, so that we don't have the last minute rush where we're always rushing to buy just jerseys and some sports kits, which cost around 200,000, 300,000. Where did the rest of the money, 3 million, go? Nobody knows. There's no transparency, there's no accountability. We are going to put a stop to that.
Because most people always complain about insecurity, about Garissa town itself, and there's insecurity, there's drought, and all these things build up to hindering talents from getting to wherever they want to get to. But we'll talk about that as well. But before as we continue, you're almost getting to wind up. But let me talk to you now. You are Miss Maria. Yeah. You realize that the government of Kenya has gone through a rough time, especially in football. FIFA suspended that. And we cannot transfer players from Kenya to other countries. And we cannot import players in as well, because the suspension still stands, as the Ministry of Sports continues to hold meetings to ensure that they have a normalization committee which can help as well to put things in order. Where do you see all this scenario leave the country, and the young talents who are coming up, and without academies like Blue Bombers? You see, through Blue Bombers, some young, the 5 of them are going to Sweden to play for 5 years and study. There's a child who is 9 years, there's another one who is 6 years, and the other 3 are 18, 17, and 21. They're going to play professional football. One of them is Abdullahi from Lavington. Where does this all leave us? What do you think should be done to help us get back on track, so we can have more academies, so we can be able to get ourselves into a position where we can negotiate with the world without having a suspension?
You see, the suspensions must have happened because of some things that were done that were not right. And that is why it becomes important for us to have these academies, because you can imagine when you have these children and you've started with them from a younger age, you are able to give them the right way of behaving. Because I want to believe some of these things have happened because of maybe drugs and what have you that the players are indulging in. So I want to believe the idea of having these academies in our counties will really assist, because it will be able to bring up players that will be well disciplined and players that will be focused, knowing that that is their future. By so doing, we'll continue having more of these young children being taken to such places to do their players.
So just a question to you. You want to run for governor in Migori.
Yes.
That's Okoth Bado's backyard,
Yeah,
if I'm
true.
not wrong. Looking at this thing of politics as a whole, people come in, and I've talked to some CECs of sports in various counties, and I can't mention their names here.
Yes.
And even the counties where they come from, because they're well known. And they told me, you know what, Jeff, we are here for show off.
Yes.
We are not here to work. We're just here to be seen that the county government takes care of sports. But I, as a CEC, have no right or authority to order anything to happen in this county without the governor's authorization. Most leaders know when they're getting into power, it's their time to eat. You know, it was your time, and now it's our time to eat. Is that going to be the same scenario for you when you get into power?
I don't think that is what is going to happen, because I remember even yesterday after I got this questionnaire, I had to call one of the CECs there, and I asked, surely, I'm getting this topic, I don't know how to approach it, because for once, I've never seen it in Migori. I've never seen these activities in Migori, according to what this department is supposed to have. And he actually gave me the same response that you're telling me. He just told me, but you know, there was a budget that was actually allocated to this, but this budget was taken into doing other things, simply because sports is never taken to be a serious department within the county. And that is why I'm saying that we are going to make sure, coming up with a board, this board will be in charge of getting to know how are we identifying these players, where are we placing these academies, because actually what we are going to do, I want to believe that already what is allocated for that to start with is enough. And after that, you'll also start working with the national government for sports, the Ministry of Sports. So by so doing, I want to believe by the time we get there, we'll be having enough academies that we can put the few children that we'll be starting with. And I want to say that the problem that the Migorians have been having in particular is because you are given a ministry and you are never empowered. You are just there just to indicate that you are a minister for this. But when it comes to budgeting and the implementation of all the policies that have been passed, these people are never actually engaged. And this is something that is going to be of the past. I was talking even to the Minister of Education, of Health. You just say if we can go a bit. And I was asking this minister, surely, how come our women are going to hospitals to give birth and they have to buy even the clamp that is usually put when a child is born? And the minister was saying that, Madam, that is where we are. We are never in control. Money comes, but
that happens everywhere. I'll tell you one day a story about Kitui County, and it's one of the horrible stories about the health, but now we're talking about sports. Abdullahi Daktari, as we wind up, what's your parting shot on sports?
Thank you so much. We talked about this sport, and it's very important that we take it seriously. There is allocation given to our counties and through also our constituency level. But my belief is, and the fact that I have now, is there's mismanagement of the resources. So we can start from that point, turn the ship around, use what we have properly, constitute leadership in the sports activities, create awareness among the youth that this is their right, and this is a form of employment as well, that they can advance themselves through the sporting activities. Not everyone can be a doctor, not everyone can be an engineer, but sports can be a source of livelihood. I will also encourage businessmen to also set up sporting academies, the ones we don't have now, so that they can be agents and sell off these players and get revenues for themselves while helping the young one. So it's an open field. Under my leadership, I will promote sports.
Well, Dr. Abdullahi Muhammad, Madam Jen Marwa, thank you so much for showing up. But I wanted to remind you, as I always remind people who come to this show, that everything that you've said right here, I will hold you guys accountable for that when you become leaders. Trust me, I will follow up and I will hold you accountable, because most people promise what they can't offer. And I hope that what you have promised the people of where you're coming from will offer them. There's young people out there that are dying of drugs, yet they can be in the football pitch and playing good football. They're dying of peer groups and things which are not leading them the right direction, in which destroys their lives later. These young people can be something through sports. They can grow themselves to be agents, as you said. They can grow themselves to be coaches and trainers in all aspects when to talk about sports. Thank you so much for coming or showing up this morning. It's a holiday, people are celebrating, but you took your time to be here.
Thanks.
We take a short break. That's it from here. The first hour of the sports chat is done. So when we come back, the next hour sports chat starts exactly at 8. We're having more about the Kip Keino Classic.